Welcome to week 7 of Explore the Bible. Today we venture into a new book. We're going to be in the book of Hosea for about 4 weeks, I think, and looking forward to that. This is a tough book. Okay, the story of Hosea is a heartbreaking story and a very difficult story to read, and it's very challenging to us because Hosea's life becomes the metaphorical message that God is sharing, not just with Hosea, but sharing through Hosea to the people of Israel, the northern kingdom. Hosea is an 8th century prophet, which means he's in the northern kingdom of Israel prior to them being attacked and basically wiped out by the nation of Assyria. So we're going to be looking at this story and what God has to say to Hosea through Hosea, and how God uses him and his life to illustrate for us his love for his people. So before we do that, looking at Hosea 1 today, before we do, be sure and subscribe to our channel, like, comment, share. If you've got anything, questions about it, be sure and ask those. We'll do our best to answer them before you go to teach a class on a Sunday morning, if that's what you're doing, right? Thanks for those of you that are teachers. Appreciate you watching every week. All right, here we go. When the Lord first spoke to Hosea, he said this to him: "Go and marry a woman of promiscuity and have children of promiscuity, for the land is committing blatant acts of promiscuity by abandoning the Lord." What an opening line. What an opening call to him. I mean, it's hard to picture, isn't it, how God would say to him, hey, I need you to go and marry a woman who's a prostitute and have children from her, some of whom you may not even know if they're yours in a sense, the children of promiscuity. But he says, for the land is committing acts of promiscuity by abandoning the Lord. So he's creating for us this idea of the Lord being the husband and the people of Israel being this woman of promiscuity. And this is a common prophetic use, right, to talk about spiritual adultery, this leaving the Lord, falling out of love with the Lord and falling in love with Baal and other different kinds of gods, these little g gods, and this idea that you're committing adultery on the Lord, that he is your husband and yet you have left him, right? In the New Testament, we use that idea of the bride of Christ, right? That the church is the bride of Christ. And so that same kind of idea then would apply, wouldn't it, to spiritual adultery, when the bride of Christ begins to worship other gods, when it falls in love with other things besides Jesus. Glad that doesn't happen. I think we know better than that, don't we? Okay, so he tells him, I want you to get married and I want you to have kids. So he went and he married Gomer. There's a name, if you're thinking about, this is not Gomer Pyle, for those of you old enough to remember that. Gomer, the daughter of Diblam, and she conceived and bore him a son. And then the Lord said to him, name him Jezreel, for in a little while I will bring the bloodshed of Jezreel on the house of Jehu, and put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. On that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. Okay, so now we see the second line of what's happening here. It's not just that the woman that he marries will now be a message or representation of the adulterous relationship that Israel has with God, this woman who will become adulterous, who is a prostitute, and her relationship with Hosea, but also the children become representative of messages that the Lord has for the people, prophetic messages. So we name the son Jezreel because Jezreel, the valley of Jezreel, which everybody knew what that was, will become a place of bloodshed when the nation, Israel, the northern kingdom, falls. He's telling them this is what's going to happen. And so the son, every time the son's name is called, is a reminder of what is going to happen. That's rough, right? It gets worse. She conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. And the Lord said to him, name her Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer have compassion on the house of Israel. This means no compassion. Lo is no, Ruhamah is compassion. I have no compassion on the house of Israel, but I will certainly take them away. I will have compassion on the house of Judah, that's the southern kingdom, and I will deliver them by the Lord their God. I will not deliver them by bow, sword, or war, by horses and cavalry. So the daughter is named, I don't love you, almost, right? No compassion. No compassion. I don't love you. But that for a name. Now, there is this message, right, for Hosea, who is in complete service to the Lord. So he marries who the Lord tells him to marry. And when he has children, the Lord tells him what to name the children, and they will be in service as his message. When he calls them by name, he is preaching the message that God has for the people of Israel. There is no compassion. You are going to die. I will take you away. Eventually they go away. He says, now I'll have compassion on the southern kingdom. I love them. I have compassion on them, but I don't have compassion on you. Now, this is because of their rebellion, right? I will no longer have compassion. Not that I never have loved you, but that I will no longer be patient with you. I will no longer put up with you. I will have no more compassion for you. This is every time he calls her name. He's telling this message, right? We're done. And then it gets worse. After Gomer had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she conceived and gave birth to a son. And then the Lord said, name him Lo-Ami, for you are not my people, and I will not be your God. Wow. This is tough, isn't it? This second son, the third child, named Lo-Ami, because you're not my people. They've made their choice, right? They have chosen not to be God's people. They're worshiping Baal. They have committed adultery. They have found other gods that they would rather worship. They found other beliefs, other values, other things important to them, and they're not interested in God. They're not interested in following him. They don't have time for it. They don't have energy for it. They're done. And the Lord says, well, me too. You're not my people. I'm not your God. And every time he calls this son's name Lo-Ami, he is preaching the message. You have left God. You're not his people, and he's not your God. He will no longer have compassion on you. The valley of Jezreel will become a place of judgment. A valley where you celebrate now, where you think you're in control, where you think you have armies and you can defend yourselves and you don't need God, will become the place of judgment. Now here's the thing, the country was doing well financially, but spiritually they had walked away from God. And he says judgment's coming. Judgment is coming. And then Hosea's wife leaves him. Some of you may say, I didn't blame her. He named the kids this, right? This guy's crazy. But, she was never one who was going to be true to him to begin with, it seems, right? I mean, she came out of prostitution. She came out of adultery. That was the life that she had lived. And so she went back to the life she was living. And the Lord says, go get her back. Then the Lord said to me, go again and show love to a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, just as the Lord loves the Israelites. Though they turn to other gods and love raising cakes, they love this other gods. They love to do these things, but the Lord loves them. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and 5 bushels of barley. And I said to her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be promiscuous or belong to any man, and I will act the same way toward you. Do you see this, man? What a story, right? The Lord tells him, go back and get Gomer, because your relationship with her is mirroring my relationship. It's a picture of my relationship with my people. And I want you to go back. She loves another man, and she's loved by another man, and she's living a different life. Well, you know what? Go back and get her, because the Israelites love other gods, but I love them still, and you love her. Go get her back. And what does he do? He has to buy her back because she is in slavery as a prostitute. And he's got to buy her back, and he does. He pays for her just like the Lord buys us back. We call it redemption. Redemption. He buys us back. Right? He had to buy her back. I mean, he lays out the number, right? 15 shekels and 5 bushels of barley. it took to get her back, but he got her back, and he said, you live with me and don't be promiscuous, don't belong to another man, and I'll act the same way towards you. I will love you and I will be true to you. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to make you go through any kind of purgatory to get back in my good graces. I love you and I want you to come back. And he brings her back into his home, and the Lord says, this is the picture I have, for the Israelites must live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred pillar, and without ephod or household idols. Afterward the people of Israel will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come with awe to the Lord and to his goodness in the last days. They've done these horrible things, just like, you can't imagine, right? Can you imagine bringing her back and restoring this relationship? Can't imagine that, right? But this is the Lord's walk with us, and it's hard to picture. Why would the Lord bring us back? Why would the Lord allow Israel back into relationship after all they had done and the way they had treated him? And we don't need you. We don't have time. We're not your people. That's fine. Good. We didn't want to be your people to begin with, The Lord brings them back, just like he brings us back. Just like he brings us back. Hosea brought Gomer back into his home. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that's helped. It's going to be a great study. I think you're going to enjoy the book of Hosea. If you've never read it before, spend some time reading through the book. Read the first 3 chapters as you prepare to teach. God bless you for doing that. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like, share it with others. Comment on if you've got questions or thoughts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.